Good morning, everyone. Welcome back to Chef Monica's Kitchen. Today, I'm actually going to make a frittata for you. So basically, a frittata is like a crustless quiche. So it's like one big egg omelet, basically. I mentioned this when I made these sweet potatoes that you could use them for a frittata if you have leftovers, which I do. So these are the whipped sweet potatoes I made just a couple of days ago. If you want to find the recipe for them, you can go onto our YouTube channel and look at the whipped sweet potato recipe. Here we have 6 eggs. To that, I'm going to add just a tiny bit of milk because there's already some cream in here, so I don't need too much. We're going to season this up with a pinch of salt, freshly cracked pepper, a little bit of garlic powder. I love garlic powder in almost everything. So a lot of garlic powder, a little bit of paprika, smoked paprika, my favorite herb de Provence, because I have a disease called herb de Provence, and then key ingredient, nutmeg. That is a whole nutmeg. Can you see that up close? So one of the things...
There we go.
There you go. Okay, so one of the things that I always like to tell people about, if you've ever seen the spice mace at the grocery store, nutmeg and mace actually are basically the same thing. So when you get the nutmeg like this, there's a thin sort of a skin around the exterior, kind of the way the peanut has a little thin sort of skin around it. They take that off and grind that up, and that is the spice mace. Tastes totally different, same plant or same seed. So we're gonna go ahead and use our microplane to zest in some of that. And it just jazzes up your eggs a little bit. I know it's a couple of extra steps. You don't have to season your eggs, but I think it makes all the difference in the final product. So to that, we're gonna add our whipped sweet potatoes. That's roughly about 1.5 cups of the whipped sweet potatoes. And then I had some fresh chives growing in the garden, so I went ahead and plucked those. You could also take some onions and caramelize them if you wanted to, or you could just leave it out. But I like to have all that in there. Just gives it a little brightness of color and flavor. So let's just quickly chop that up here. Once this is all chopped up, it'll be roughly about 2 tablespoons or so of fresh chives. You could also use parsley. You could use sage if you wanted to. Sage actually would be a delicious, especially if you wanted to like fry the sage and put it on top as a garnish. That is a lovely garnish actually. And don't cut your hands because you're talking to the camera. That is always a danger. I've only had one disaster in a cooking class, and that's because I distracted the person. Shame on me. Okay. Toss those in there. There's one bigger piece. And then we're gonna go ahead and stir this together with a fork just to get it really well combined. I find a fork works better than a whisk just to get those egg yolks really well whipped together. Other ideas for frittatas are any kind of fresh vegetable to make. If you wanted to make sort of a Mexican style, you could do fresh tomatoes, avocado, and some onions. If you wanted to do something else, you could use sort of like more Mediterranean tomatoes and peppers. You could either cook the vegetables or leave them raw. It's really up to you, unless it's a vegetable that takes a long time to cook. For example, potatoes take a long time to cook. So you'd want to make sure that you saute those up in advance. You can also do this with mashed potatoes if you have leftover mashed potatoes, and that is also delicious. So I've got my little skillet here. This is a non-stick, but if you wanted to use a cast iron pan, you can use that as well, or just a regular saute pan. Just make sure you put a little olive oil on the bottom so it doesn't stick. We're gonna pour all that in here. Whoops. Make sure you can actually see it. And I am gonna top this with a little bit of goat cheese. You could use any kind of cheese if you like feta better, if you like just a grated Italian, Parmesan, whatever you like. I happen to have, this is a Cypress Grove Creamery Purple Haze. It's a fresh goat cheese that has fennel pollen in it. It's really delicious. I happen to be a goat cheese fanatic. I know some people don't like it. So again, use whatever you prefer. And I'm gonna go ahead and crumble that over the top. We'll pop this into an oven that's preheated to 375 degrees and leave that in there for approximately, I'm gonna say about a half an hour for this to set up really well and start to brown over the top. The cheese will melt into there, and then I'll show you what it looks like when we take it out. Alrighty, this is done. Yet again, I wish that there was smell-o-vision. Why can't there be smell-o-vision? So, top this out of the oven. You can see how fluffy that got. And it's set, no longer jiggly. Let me close this so I don't fall over and break my neck. It's easier to cut this if you let it cool for a few minutes, but I want to show you what it looks like when you cut into it. So, see that goat cheese on top is all oozy-goozy. This will feed about, I'm going to say 4 to 6 people, but it depends on the size of the people's appetite. It also,
or your husband for 3 days.
Or your husband for 3 days. I was just going to say it does keep well. So if you have some left over, you know, if it's just you at home, don't not make it just because it's just you at home.
You could cut the recipe in half.
You could, but you can reheat it, and it reheats really, really well. So let's see if I can get this out. That's why I say it's harder to, or easier to serve this up when it's cooled a little bit. But
first piece is always impossible.
First
anyway.
piece is always impossible. We'll make it look pretty on the plate. There you go. Lovely. Simple, delicious, hot off the press. Go home and make it. Frittatas are great.